deliver his presentation on the remarkable achievements of the ministry in the housing sector through the Central Housing and Planning Authority. Minister Colin Crowell.
Thank you very much, Permanent Secretary Coupen. Acknowledgement, Minister Rodriguez, CEO of GWI, Mr. Baksh and his team. I also want to recognize the various heads from the Central Housing and Planning Authority, led by the Director of Operations, and I'm acting for the CEO, Ms. Denise Tudor, and her team. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, a Happy New Year to all of you, and the pleasure is ours to, for the next hour or so maybe, for us to outline on this wonderful sector called the housing and water sector. I must also say thank you for throughout the year for you to have been staying the course, and you have also been playing your role in highlighting not only just achievements but also to help us in sometimes to resolve issues or matters as they come up. And as persons who are working in the media, you're directly involved with responses from the communities. And so sometimes you yourselves, you call to follow up on issues that we are not aware of, and it allows us to resolve those. So you've just had a presentation on the water sector, so I'll just outline for you here now in terms of housing, what has taken place over the last year, and a projection of what is expected to come, and what also overall we've been able to achieve as part of our commitment in this period. And the housing sector is one whereby, yes, we came to the population, we've committed a program, we've outlined our overarching targets, and we've been repeating those. And so it's important now that we've completed 2024, and we're less than a year in terms of completing the 5-year term, current term. It's important for us to assess where we are. And so I want to say that for the housing sector, we've had a robust year. In fact, I'll make this bold statement, is that there has been no busier period, there has been no more active period than what we've achieved in 2024 for both sectors. But since I'm reporting on housing, for housing, and the staff are here, and I want to, the heads that is, I want to thank them and their staff for the many overtime and many beyond the call of duty time they have provided for us to be able to accomplish what we've achieved throughout this period. And oftentimes what is highlighted is when somebody has an issue, when there's somebody wants to probably have themselves heard, and oftentimes we don't talk about the people who are behind the scenes to ensure that the work is delivered. I want to therefore start off by dealing with our allocations, and so I'll identify the heads under which I'll speak and then give you some pointers. For allocations, which has been a forefront in terms of our activities for housing, and something you have been monitoring too, because you've been attending many of our public Dream Realize activities, you've been attending many of our outdoor activities for which we've had to respond. And in terms of allocations, we started the year looking at a target, and that is to achieve a minimum of 10,000 within the calendar year, and this is one of our manifesto commitment that says, and I quote, 10,000 lots annually. And we have been able to accomplish that for this year. So in fact, for the year of 2024, we have accomplished a total of 10,791 allocations in this calendar year. That therefore means that overall we have crossed the 40,000 line, so we are about 40,290 allocations, and this figure I'm giving you refers specifically to lots in terms of residential, so it does not take into consideration or other aspect in terms of commercial allocations. And so even that, if you take that into consideration, you will realize we're much more. We've actually allocated about 11,000 in total. But commercial lots is an ongoing activity, and we do have, up to a week ago, we would have approved a number of commercial requests. But the figures I'm giving you will be specifically to residential lots. And so in terms of our allocation, therefore, this has been the most successful year. And so therefore, 27% of our allocations, overall allocations, was done in the year of 2024. And I want to allow me, therefore, to also give you some analysis in terms of how this was done. Our two largest regions, and you'll recognize based on the population and based on our requests and pending applicants, are regions 3 and 4. And so overall, 61% of the allocations were done for region 4, and 22 of those allocations, 22% of those allocations were done for region number 3. And those are our two largest regions. So by regions, therefore, 2% for region 2, 5% for region 5, 5% for region 6, another 2% on region 9, and 4% on region 10. This is 4% of our overall 40,000 plus allocations I am referring to. And if I also give you some further analysis, very often we speak about women empowerment, gender equality. Our analysis of the allocations that were done will show that 46% of those allocations were done to females. Let me repeat. 46% of the allocations were to females. And I'm not talking about joint applicants. The joint applicants is actually 26%. And so obviously by subtraction, your male allocations was 28% of the applicants. And that speaks a lot in terms of also very often when we talk about equality, you talk about independence, and it augurs well too in terms of the social fabric of our country. Another bit of analysis I want to give you is in terms of the age bracket. So if one is to use the definition of youth below 35, well, therefore, 53% of the allocants are below 35, 53%. And if we're in the next bracket between 36 to 50, 32% of the allocants, and 51 and above, 15%. What is the message behind this? The message behind this, and many of you here, well, most of you here from the media, are from the younger generation. It therefore means when you were growing up in your household, and you looking back and you would have heard your parents speaking about lack of opportunities in terms of being able to benefit from an allocation of a house lot and how long one will have to wait, etc. But now once you're 21 and above and you apply at some point in time in terms of our criteria, and our criteria that we've been prioritizing has been 2019 and prior, and that has been consistent. However, as lands become available in other regions, we have been able to raise the level of the expectation. So for example, Region 3, as a priority, we have been allocating 2021 and prior. And with our plan to come, which I'll give you at the end of this presentation, you will look at the outline of what one can expect for those who are in the system. But you have an opportunity, therefore, at a much younger age to be able to be allocated and similarly to move onwards to a mortgage and to be able to build and own your own home and have your own family, to start your own family. So that tells in terms of the development of our country and the transcending in terms of family development as well as wealth generation, that the younger population obviously has that equal opportunity. In terms of the allocations, if one was to look at the categories, because what we normally have is identified in low income, moderate, middle, high. So if one was to look below middle income, which would be between low and moderate, 72% of that 40,000 plus were from below the middle income bracket. In fact, low income is 43%. That again tells you a story, because very often you hear the comment about, in terms of only particular bracket in terms of housing can be dealt with or are being addressed. Far, far from the reality. The reality is that everyone is dealt with equally. The reality is that there is a system by which we are working with, and so therefore, regardless of our appearance and regardless of our background, one is addressed once you are a pending applicant and within a particular period. The middle income bracket is 19% of the persons we have allocated, and the high income, less than 10%, 9% in fact of the persons that were allocated are from the high income bracket. And so we'll understand when we're talking also about bridging and ensuring that at all level one can have that equal opportunity and raising the level of standard, you'll realize where majority of our allocations were done for. Moving on quickly, I also want to say to you that in terms of our expectation moving forward, because we have committed, if we said 10,000 annually, it means what? 50,000 by year 5. That means we have a gap of 10,000. We will be surpassing 50,000 in the year of 2025. In fact, we will be more than surpassing the 50,000. So in the year of 2025, we will allocate far more than 10,000 that we have done under our target for the annual figure. And for the regions, we are working, there's a team that working assiduously to be able to acquire additional lands to allow us to be able to do this. And so, for example, speaking about acquisition, in the calendar year of 2024, we have been able to acquire over 4,900 acres of land for housing development, and that is just in 1 year. And so one will understand the magnitude of the task ahead, the magnitude that is involved in terms of land acquisition to be able to do these allocations. And very often I think this goes over to the head of many of the beneficiaries as well as many citizens, because you very often hear the term, yes, Guyana has a lot of land, or we have a lot of land in the terms of unused, and where persons are congregated or reside over a particular area, whether it's a coastland. But the reality is it costs money to develop these areas. And these are virgin lands that we are developing because you have zero infrastructure. And in many of the areas now, because of where we're going, because we have to move beyond the forest depth, we have saturated the forest depth of land area, so we have to go beyond that. And when you go beyond the forest depth, very often you're going into swampland too. Very often you're going into land that may have been flooded for years. And so the drainage and irrigation system has to be developed and designed. And this is done not in isolation. This is done in consolidation with our project department and the Drainage and Irrigation Authority. And so it's a lot of work that goes into developing an area. And for example, we have, as a result, in the 4-year period since we're back in office, we have developed over 75 new housing areas. Over 75 new housing areas. In fact, for 2024, 19 areas, new housing areas were developed in 2024. And I can give you some examples. Region 3, Wales, Region 4, for example, Good Hope, LBI, Two Friends, Luziknan, Nonpareil, Enterprise, Yarracabra on the highway, Region 5, Waterloo, Region 6, Palmyra, Region 10, Amelia's Ward, Fitzhope, and on Suzdijk, Hararuni. And so those are the areas that we've been able to develop under the period for 2024. What has been achieved prior to that? Prior to that, under 2015 to 2020, only 3 areas were developed. 3, and I named them because I would like to be challenged. Peters Hall, Prospect, Track E, and Providence. A total of 1,258 lots were developed between 2015 to July 2020. Even in terms of allocations, what we've achieved in 1 year for this year alone, 2024, prior to that was 7,528. And so one will understand the level of work that is being done by Ministry of Housing. And similarly, I make this point because the staffing, except for the first year, the staffing remains the same throughout the last 3 years. They are doing much more work now and with a similar level of staff. In 2019, just to give a context of how serious the APNU was about this sector, notwithstanding that you then had a Ministry of Housing, you had a Ministry of Housing that was departmentalized under Ministry of Communities. In 2019 was the very first time when budget was given for housing development. Some of the schemes that we have allocated throughout this period of 2024 includes in Wales in Region 3, similarly LBI on East Coast, Palmyra in Region 6, Silica City, for which work is ongoing, and a number of other areas on the East Coast that we can go into should you require some additional information. I want to now move to regularization and the work that is being done by our Community Development Department. This is a topic right here at Parliament, only, I think, 2 weeks ago, when we had the debate on the land acquisition. You have an opposition that speaks so much to talk about care for people and how much they so love the citizens. Well, let me tell you what has been done under this period. We have regularized 17 areas in 3.5 years. Those 17 areas equates to 1,571 lots. We have relocated, so I'm separating the regularization from relocating because a regularization will mean the persons, we have made a policy decision that is an area where the land is being occupied that can be regularized. We have relocated 430 persons, or 430 to 430 lots. In 2025, we intend to accomplish another 987. So what are some of those areas that we are referring to? Regularization for the 17 areas include Greenwich Park in Region 3, the Kindred Parcel 1, Tushan Railway Lands, Company Path, Iflot, Bachelor's Adventure here on the east coast of Demerara, Chatamargo. This was done in 2022. In 2023, Virgin Railway South called Acme, Good Hope Railway Embankment, this is here on the East Coast. Portions of the Railway Reserve at Plantation, Annandale, that's here on the East Coast. Portions of Block E, Christianborg and Wismar, Linden, that's Blueberry Hill. The rear of Conception Fitzhope, Parcel 3, that's in Amelia's ward. Similarly, for 2024, with the year that we are referring to, what we've just accomplished, Plantation De Willem, Plantation Barnwell, Plantation Philadelphia, and Plantation D'Endrac. 1 area in Region 2, 10 in Region 3, 4 in Region 4, and 2 areas in Region number 10. What are some of the areas we expect to address in 2025 in terms of our regularization? These include Lima Sands Housing Scheme, 35 lots, Paradise Gypt, and this is Region 2 we're referring to, Walton Hall, another 60. So we're expecting a minimum of 95 lots in Region 2. And I'm giving you a minimum. This is a minimum target that has been achieved by that has been set by the community development, but we'll be giving them much more. Region 3, Plantation Best Reserves, another 59. Here in Region 4, in Success, 43. Mocha Arcadia, 209. And I'm going to repeat this because repeatedly I've heard a lot of directed and willful misinformation. There are 2 aspects of Mocha. There is what is called the Mocha Arcadia, and Mocha Arcadia will be south of where you know the existing Mocha regular residents live. That portion, there's a portion of land where we are going to regularize, and our numbers that we have checked and based, meaning they have gone to the ground and they have done the assessment, over 209. And then there's another portion of which would be, for us when we're driving in, would be the back, but it would be east of the current Mocha. Those persons are already getting their title for the very first time. Moving on, Enmore BZ, Enmore Newtown. So combined, that's another 76 lots, persons to benefit. Enmore Hope, another 75. Vigilance South, Vigilance North, Calderton North, D'Endrac, south of Railway, Enterprise Block 8, Enterprise Market Street. So in all for Region 4, a minimum of 700 occupants will be regularizing. Region 6, Belvedere North, Hampshire, another 57. Region 10, Ituni, 76. New Harden, 30. Comaca, 154. Silver Hill, 25. West Watuka, 93. Block E and F, Canvas City, 150. Block F, Wismar, 53. Green Valley, Wismar, 39. Siberian, 47. A total of 667 lots minimum are targeted to be regularized in Region number 10 in the year of 2025. What is the message I want to leave there? The message I want to leave there, contrary to what has been peddled, our regularization program has a criteria. And that does not take into consideration how persons look or persons' political affiliation. That takes into consideration, 1, our love for the people of Guyana and the citizens of Guyana. And similarly, we have said no new squatting will be regularized, but your government is cognizant of what we've inherited. And what we inherited was a program whereby, and I say a program, where persons were encouraged to willfully squat. And I'll give you an example at Amelia's Ward, Region 10, where, for example, in our second year, we would have allocated a total of 400 plus lots. But it took a while for the infrastructure work to be done, because persons were encouraged who were squatting to squat first of all, and then encouraged not to move, that prevented the infrastructure, the access for the infrastructure work to start. Those are not people who really care for citizens, because when we squat or when we occupy a land, one, obviously you don't have ownership. Two, you won't have access to legal utility services. Three, security of tenure is not assured, because the future of you and whoever else are occupying those areas illegally can be dealt with. And likewise, your children's future is not secured. So we have been saying no new squatting will be recognized, but your government is working to ensure that we are in a position and we are able to address what we have met. And I want to recognize the work being done by the Community Development Department, because they have gone into all of those areas, and what they have done, when you see them number the houses or the building that is there, the numbering is not to say that it's giving an approval. The numbering is for them to be able to prepare their report, and so they can match what they have found, the status on the ground, versus when we go back, if there are any changes. So the whole aspect of regularization, relocation will continue, and this is an ongoing process. And similarly, another myth, because I like the questions and some of the comments that I see, I try to hit them head on, so you don't have to worry in terms of the answer. Another myth sometimes persons say is that when they see allocations being done or they see a squatting area being addressed, it's being said then that is being done at the displacement of the persons who are pending applicants or who are awaiting legitimately and done the right thing. We have a program that we're working with. We have a robust program, and I'll also speak to, when I come to policies, I'll speak to what our plan, or long-term plan in terms of regularization and squatting. I want to therefore come to ownership. Yes, you see persons allocated. Yes, you see persons are able to access their area, their land, and that is from the survey department. There's another aspect that involves where persons have to sign for their agreement of sales, as well as for the processing of their title. That's an activity very often that takes place behind the scene. So when an allocation is done, it's not the end of it. There's another set of work that is involved. And the similar staff that is doing the allocation, the similar staff is involved in completing this aspect. That is to ensure ownership is done. And so the work never stops. In the year of 2024, we have processed more than 7,118 titles. We have therefore increased by 113% of what we have accomplished in the prior year, meaning 2023. To date, therefore, we have processed over 14,710 titles, certificate of titles. Let me repeat that, 14,710. And that does not include, as I speak, there's another close to 2,500 certificate of, to process for certificate of titles that is at the land registrar, awaiting to be signed off and going through its check and balance processes. So you have another 25 that within this month that will be available for distribution, and that work is ongoing. So the signing of, to be able to process titles is something we are proud of in terms of our accomplishment, because this too has been part of when you read the comments and the complaints about awaiting to have ownership. We have worked assiduously with our legal department as well as a number of agencies that are involved, and I want to point them out. GAISUCO, Guyana Sugar Corporation, Guyana Lands and Survey Commission, NISIL, because as well as MMA for Region 5. Those are the main agencies that we've been working closely with to allow us to be able to process the ownership of the land and to have them transferred legally, so that then we can move on to for the processing of the certificate of title, which involves the prior to that for the signing of their agreements. And so I'm pleased to say we're moving in this regard, and in this 2025 we will work assiduously to bring on par many of those areas that are expected. So for example, persons in Region 3 that have been asking and who have been allocated their lands in this January month, number of 2 areas will be commence processing for their ownership. What was done, and if one was to do a comparison of prior to 2020, from 2015 to 2020, the APA and UAFC government processed. So what we accomplished in 2024 was what they did for 5 years. In fact, I'll give you the figure, 7,713. So what we did in 1 year is what they did in 5 years. And allow me, therefore, to move on to another aspect. This was not a manifesto commitment. What we committed was allocation of lots. But we are a government that wants to push home ownership. We want to also ensure that persons are able to access their new home as quickly as possible. Not everyone is in a position to be able to do their own construction or building. When I say not in a position, I mean physically, or not be having the necessary time. So they go into the bank and you get an approval for a mortgage. So I come here now to our housing program, or houses construction. And yes, we have seen some criticism, and rightfully so. Yes, we have seen some criticism in terms of work, quality of work done, and this is something we've strengthened in terms of the housing unit, the monitoring team for the housing unit. But it does not take away the impact from the construction of those houses. So for example, in completed houses, not houses in progress, completed houses, we have invested over $12.5 billion for the completion of over 1,671 houses. And I'm speaking here of the housing program on the coast. This is specifically the housing program on the coast. In various categories too. You have low income, moderate income, and let me give you